How's it going, Goodman Games Universe? And welcome to another exciting episode of Raw Rules as Written. I am one of your co-hosts this evening. My name is Matt, also known as Grape Ape, and joined by
Stefan Surratt, also known as a DM Bad Wrong Phone on a couple spots out there.
Stefan. How you been? What's been going on? We haven't seen you for a couple weeks.
Just life keeping me busy. Lots of this Conquest of Chaos thing is I'm the project management skills are getting tested. That for sure.
All right.
But coming closer. But we have a wonderful guest as always.
And if we are welcoming Tom Sweo, did I say that right? Sweo?
You did. You got it right.
To the show, also known as Traitorous Elf, Traitorous Alf.
Yep.
On Discord and some other socials, maybe.
Pretty
Tom,
much
if
everywhere.
This is the first time people are seeing you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I've been role playing since 2003, 2004-ish. Got into DCC a couple years ago, and kind of haven't really looked back. It's pretty much the main game that I run with my friends, and I've written a couple of things for it.
So much so, yeah, that you started third-party publishing. What do you have out there that the fans can check out?
I've got two zines called the Ashmore Herald, Volume 1 and Volume 2. It's the first one is kind of just a little setting guide, kind of details sort of like kind of pastoral America, circa like posts like up to the Civil War. Inspired by a lot of the area that I grew up in the state that I live in. And then the second one is a funnel, a level 0 funnel, where you get to play as the servants and employees of a manor house that has gone haunted. It's that one actually just finished fulfilling the Kickstarter for it like 2 weeks ago. And so like I'm excited. It's out there, and I've had a blast writing it, and I have some other things in the works, but nothing official yet.
It had some great looking art, that haunted house.
And I read a play test of it. It was pretty fun. It felt like it could be, if we got any big, I don't know how big the Venn diagram of DCC fans and like Downton Abbey fans, but I feel like this is the funnel for you if you meet there.
That is it started as like a game jam idea, but my wife is a huge Downton Abbey fan and a huge Disney's Haunted Mansion fan.
Okay.
And so this was, hey, what can I write after the game jam ended and I realized I hadn't submitted anything? What can I write that might get her to play DCC? And so I started asking questions like, hey, is there like ever like an official house layout, a map of what the haunted mansions are like? Like, what's the room layout? And she kind of gave me a couple of things of like fan theories and stuff, and it just kind of went from there. And it was like, okay, what's some cool spooky stuff that can happen as these hapless servants try to make their way out of this house?
And so, were you successful? Did she play it?
She did. She was actually one of my playtesters. Her and her dad helped me playtest one night. They both got all of the Disney references, which is what I was hoping for, and she got all the Downton references that I was kind of hoping for. But yeah, she also was. I bounced ideas off of her throughout the whole process.
Yeah, if I understand correctly, there's a recipe in the Ashmore Herald. Is there also one in What Remains of House to Crane?
There is. So the first recipe is just like a simple charcuterie board. Because I was like, not everybody's a cook. But with the What Remains of House to Crane, I wanted like a weird. I developed this one on my own. But I wanted like a savory cheese Danish, if that makes sense. Because like I love breakfast pastries, and I love like a quiche Lorraine. So like, what if I could combine the two? And so it's like a kind of a very simple cheese Danish style, like folding of the pastry, with like a savory like bacon, cheese, and green onion mixture.
Stefan, do you say? Yeah, I don't know which way is correct, but I'll probably say it the wrong way. Do you say charcuterie or charcuterie?
I say charcuterie.
See, I
That's
say
but
charcuterie.
you know,
All right.
If
Well,
left to my own devices, I'll just say, just pass me the board.
yeah.
well,
Usually I say, give me some of that cheese.
Yeah.
happy Easter, everyone. I hope everybody had a great Easter out there. If you do celebrate, but Stefan, we got to get in some questions. We got some work to
Oh
do.
yeah, you packed us heavy once again. So we're going starting off number one. We continue with the specialist. This last specialist episode, folks. Number one, can the Elven Trickster learn to cast blaster and messenger spells?
Now, normally, Tom, they draw from the gnome spell list, which has their own little curated list of maybe a dozen or so spells. What's your answer on this one? Can they dip over into the other classes and get some of that action?
So I think this one's a really nice. It's a tricky question because the messenger doesn't get spells,
That is true.
but and so I've my local one of my local players was curious about the trickster. So I had to do a little bit of reading to help them figure it out. But the lore always says that they're the laziest spellcasters. Whatever's the easiest to cast for them. But they can, if they're willing to go on a quest, they can pick up spells from other lists.
Mm-hmm.
That is
So
correct. And so let's talk about it. So Elena, if you could bring up handout 1A. Sorry, I was talking to 3F in the chat. I'm trying to type in my answer. Xcrawl core book coming to Foundry VTT. I would say send an email into info@goodman-games.com. I do not know, but I would imagine probably.
hopefully.
But
One of the
handout
most
one,
effective ways to get companies to do stuff is to give them money for similar things and then also badger them about the thing you also want. It's a very effective way in my experience.
so handout 1A, page 46. They have a singularly lax spellcasting tradition employing ancient fae spells cast in the rote manner of elves, but without any of the reverence for nature and ancestors that gnomes use, the system they call the bunk. Now, I'm interested to figure out what the inspiration was for this system that Brendan developed, the bunk. Any guesses on why he named it the bunk?
I don't know the answer. It almost feels like it was just a reference to there's a word that I can't think of, but I think it feels like so I'm gonna use a different word. Almost kind of like bupkis, like that, like well, isn't like that's bunk, like that's ridiculous. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of what that it feels like that
Well,
fits the vibe.
It's only referenced in the core book one time, so there's not a lot of information out there. So I'm just wondering.
I mean, I feel like that's probably right. You ask me about the bunk, and I'm thinking about the wire. But I don't think that's what Brendan meant here. I don't think that's a wire.
We're gonna have to get him on the show and see what his thinking was for that. But Elaine, if you could bring up handout 1B for us, further on page 146. One advantage is the flexibility. They can learn spells from the gnome spell list, which is easiest to get, and they steal it. That's how they're getting these spells. But they have been known to undertake dangerous quests to learn arcane and even divine spells from other traditions. So because the messenger doesn't really have spells, but has like holy abilities, where do you think this divine spell list is coming from, Tom? You think can they steal all the way from a different universe in Dungeon Crawl Classics?
So I didn't take the page number, but I did notice that there's a section in the book that's like the spells of Xworld, and they totally reference. They're like, hey, these are just the spells we know. Who knows what's in the wider tradition? So I absolutely think that if an elf trickster came to me and said, I would like to get the blessing spell, or detect magic from anything from the cleric spell list, in DCC, I would probably try to come up with a quest to totally let them do it.
Now, Stefan, Holy Weapon is one of the messenger's abilities, but it's kind of like a spell. Some of that Holy Weapon.
Yeah.
Would that be something that you would let the Elven Trickster steal?
I think so, because a lot of the messenger has these abilities that are not spells, but they get modified. I believe we covered this already. They get, if something says it gives +1 to spell casting, it's going to give +1 to the messenger stuff as well. It's just, we have to. Some things are terminology for ease of reference at the table, and that's why they are the way they are in the book. And some things are the way they are for lore reasons. And you gotta fill a little bit at times. So I would think so.
Well, one of the important things to note, if you bring up handout 1C, please, elf tricksters cannot spell burn, so they cannot sacrifice their stats to get a better result. They can't take corruption either to get that, well, +2, +4, +6. So nothing there. But let's go to handout 1D because there's a little bit of a controversy here, a little bit of a conflicting opinions. On page 134, it says the elf tricksters put in as little effort as possible into learning magic. They might have watched it on TV, memorized their spells phonetically, or made a deal with a shady trickster to borrow a spell book who forgot to lock their window and so on. So, on one hand, you got them saying that they put in as little effort as possible, and then the other hand, you have them undertaking dangerous quests. So, which one is it? Tom, what do you think?
There can be a lot of danger in getting something quick. Yeah.
I think it's you've got that triangle of like fast, cheap, and good. Elves want it fast and good, so they might. I think that in that case, they might give up a little bit of safety, as it were, to try to get it as fast and as easily as possible. Trade off being, it might be dangerous.
So the dangers doesn't necessarily dissuade the effort that they're going to put in.
And
they're going to spend the most minimal effort, regardless of how dangerous it is.
It's one night that starts by meeting a guy under a bridge versus taking a college course.
Yeah, All right. I'm not going to go through blaster school.
All right, Stefan, what's our next question?
Yep, number 2. Does the Elven Trickster, even with a negative personality, only get the spell cantrip?
What do you think, Tom? What's your answer on this one?
Oh man! All right, so I like to I feel like I'm a kind and benevolent judge in a lot of cases, and I think I would I feel bad taking spells away, but I would say that they would if their if their modifier is low enough to reduce the number of spells they get, and they're always going to get one. I think that's got to be cantrip. I mean, they can do some cool stuff with cantrip right off the bat, so there are worse spells to be stuck with.
I definitely agree that it's one. Stefan, rules is written. What do you think? Do they would they only get one spell?
I think they might only get cantrip. Yeah, I don't like taking spells away either. But rules as written, I think that's the way it goes.
I think it does. So handout 2A on page 46, it says at first level these elven tricksters get 2 spells, cantrip and one other spell randomly determined by the list, modified by their personality score. So that means if their personality score is higher, and we'll see that on handout 2B if you bring that up, please, Elena. If their personality is higher, like 13, they're going to get an extra spell. If it's a 17 or 18, they'll get 2 extra spells. But if it's a 7 or below, then they get reduction in spells. Now, there's even an asterisk there that says they get a minimum of 1 spell. So I think rules is written, Tom. What do you think? They only get 1, right? If they have a negative personality modifier.
It is also 8's also a -1 though, right? But it doesn't have that spell adjustment on that previous handout. So if it's 7 or lower, and they automatically get 1 or get cantrip, or they automatically start with cantrip, I think it's got to be cantrip. But my cold heart could be easily persuaded for an elf trickster to say, well, I get cantrip always. Can I also then get my minimum of 1 spell?
I'm going to give you some evidence to make your heart feel a little bit better. Elaine, if you can bring up handout 2C, if we're looking on page 51, the specialist by skills table for the elf trickster, it says at first level they get 2 spells. If you bring up handout 2D back on page 134 again, where it's talking about magic, the elf trickster begins the game with 2 spells, one of which must be cantrip. So in that phrase, it references 2 spells, but it doesn't talk about the modifier from the personality score at all. Stefan, is that because it's an oversight or because we already mentioned it under the elf class?
I think we just kind of already mentioned it. And if they really want that second spell, but their personalities, is bunk, then they can, I don't know, I think I might allow it, but take it into the narrative of Xcrawl. Have them start with like some massive debt or like a really big favor. Tell them about what happened that night where they met a guy under a bridge and how it went really badly, but they got what they wanted. They just didn't get it the way they wanted it.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. What's question 3 for our trickster?
Yep. Number 3. Do all of the effects of the cantrip spell last 10 rounds for the elf trickster?
These are some tough technical questions here. Tom, what do you got for this one?
So I would say that they everything but the 20 plus result lasts for 10 rounds.
Okay. I'm not sure, Stefan. I don't know if this one is covered in the book enough that I can give an answer. But if we look at handout 3A, page 46, talking about the cantrip spells works differently for the elven tricksters. On a successful casting, it lasts up to 10 rounds. Very important. Up to. Mm-hmm. They can always choose a lesser feat. And then on 18 or better, they have superior fine control and can manipulate, kind of like a mage hand. But Elena, if you bring up handout 3B, I've highlighted the cantrip spell on page 146. For duration, it says varies. See below. The only one that we really have durations for is the first one and the last one. So 12 to 13 says it can last up to caster level rounds. And then 20 plus, it says the duration is instant. And then 14 or 17, you could kind of conclude that it's the same duration because it says at a similar range for the spell above it. So what I'm asking you guys, rules is written. How long does this spell last in the hands of an elven trickster? Am I rolling 1d10? Is it automatically 10 rounds?
That's a darn good question. I thought I knew the answer before you explained all that, but now I'm not so sure.
What were you thinking before, Stefan?
Before I was thinking of like up to 10 rounds. I was thinking like, yeah, just if they want it to last that long,
That's where my head was at.
Yeah. Are they maintaining concentration on like whatever they're doing? But yeah, now I'm going, is this limited by their class or their caster level?
Tom, what do you think? Do you let them just pick how many rounds? Like, I wanted this to last 8 rounds.
I mean, I think if we're talking about like out of combat situations, I would probably I have no problem just ruling, yeah, you want it to last up to 10 rounds. Sure, it the work you're doing is 8 rounds. In combat situations, I mean, combat ends and a turn passes, so your spell's gonna finish anyways. I would have no problem for certain cantrip results lasting the entirety of combat. But I think what I hadn't considered was like the dice roll of, sure, it can go up to 10 rounds if the die is in your favor. My original thought was they just have the selection. I need it to last 5 rounds. I'll let it last 5 rounds. I need it to last 10. It'll be 10. But I guess, rules is written. It's not clear.
Well, now that you say that, Stefan, now that you say it lasts up to 10 rounds and you say caster level, our ranking system goes up to 10th level.
Yeah.
So does it mean up to 10th level because of caster level rounds? I was just thinking a random dice roll, but your point is very valid.
Well,
What?
when you look at the spell cantrip, the caster level is, that's part of it. Duration varies, yada yada. But the 12 to 13 is, visual effect, yada yada yada, up to caster level rounds. So, and that goes up to 10.
That's true. I
So
had never thought about it that way.
I think that up to 10 rounds, they don't use caster level in that phrasing, but I think that's the limitation there. Again, most of this is focused on the in the crawl. If this is something that is taking outside of the arena, you're in a nightclub and you need to do something, maybe, hey, we're being a little bit more loose and narrative about it. I'll let it go a little longer. But I think for that, under duress of combat and the pressure of television, I think I would probably limit it to your level.
Okay, so now let's talk about, because we're given a specific condition for 18 or better. They have superior kinetic control over manipulation of picking locks and stuff like that. Would that also include the level 20? Because it says it works different for Elven casters. Cantrip works different. So the instant duration, could that in fact last my caster level round? Like this little spot that I place, maybe it's contained to this 5-foot spot, but maybe it's a constant electrical charge if the enemy stays there, doing 1d3 damage. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I like that. I think that's a great idea, and I would sure allow it.
Tom, what do you think?
My initial reaction was it's instantaneous. I mean, I think having spells like coming from other games, having spells that can do a pretty consistent source of damage is pretty powerful. Especially when you think of like things that maybe set armor to an uncomfortable temperature. But and so my thought was duration says instant. We've got it written here in the rules that it's instantaneous and that's the effect. So next turn they got a cantrip again. But I think this might be where like the rule of the elf trickster overrides the rule of cantrip, in that this is where it allows up to caster level, so that you can get you can get that spell every round. I mean, it's a D3 damage. It's not like it's setting the world on fire for a really high roll.
Yeah, if you're 10th level, doing a D3 damage for 10 rounds is not going to make or break any situation that you're in.
All right,
Yeah,
so final judgment. Do all the effects of cantrip spell last 10 rounds for the Elven Trickster? What's your final ruling? Rules is written after the evidence has been presented, Stefan.
I would say no, it's going to last your caster level, that number of rounds, which will be up to 10.
I think you might be right, but I'm going to go with my initial understanding, and I'm going to say a D10. I like the randomness of it. Sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be bad. Throws a little bit of unknown in there. So I'm going to go with that, even though I think you're correct and I'm incorrect. But Tom, what's your final answer on that?
I like both of those results, but both of those answers. But I think at this point, it's gonna. You know what? Level 1 elf trickster, you get a 20+ result. Have fun with D3 damage over the next 10 rounds. I think up to 10 could be 10.
So right. You're letting them decide.
Yeah, that also means that I can then hit them harder, and I feel less bad about it.
True, or like you said, maybe based on the success of the roll. They get 20, they get 10.
The cantrip, they have a bunch of skills like all the other specialists, but cantrip's kind of their special thing. So you do need to allow them to shine with that. Mm-hmm. It is their special thing.
Yeah, I would, if I was at a table as a player and my judge said random D10 roll or up to your caster level, I would say, yeah, that sounds great. Like none of those sound bad ways to interpret, which, I mean, that's what causes arguments, is what people think is a bad way to interpret the rule.
All right, Stefan, what do we got for our last Elven Trickster question?
Absolutely. So last one, what's their mojo earning condition?
Oh man. Well, it seems super open-ended, but it's like, are they good at tricking? Like, it's how well did they? It feels like they're going in for a handshake and they just kind of like slide the hand past a little bit too
1
quick.
point of mojo.
Yeah, there you go. 1 point of mojo. Now, if it's like a tap on the opposite shoulder to get him look, 2 points.
Yeah.
I think the like duping, conning, conniving their way is going to allow them to earn the mojo. I think I'd give a point for almost anything that causes me to go as a judge. Well, he's not going to attack the elf because he's distracted for whatever reason.
Yeah, and to specify, it says 1 to 3 points, not 1d3, 1 to 3 points for any time you can battlefield tricks. It says battlefield tricks to dupe, delay, divide, or neutralize your opponents. And yeah, sweeter the trick, more heightened enemy disadvantage, the more they earn. So
that's a good point. So, Lynn, if you could bring up handout 4A, let's show the viewers where it is in the book. On page 46, they gain 1 to 3 mojo points for a successful implementation of battlefield tricks, just like Stefan said. And I think I'd be a little bit tougher. I think, a tap on the shoulder, if it distracts them from doing something, sure, 1. But to get the 3, you've got to cause a distraction where they're attacking one of their own people, or it's got to be a little bit bigger distraction.
I want to see the Rube Goldberg machine come into play.
Exactly.
Like a sick kick flip over like a monster in the dungeon. If they go, that's 2 right there. But
well, and it does talk about the sweeter the trick, the more the enemy's disadvantage. So if it's a little trick and it drops them on the dice chain 1, 1 point of mojo. If it drops them on the dice chain 2 points of mojo. So you can use the dice chain right there. And not related to their mojo earning condition, but one thing I wanted to note, Elaine, if you could bring up handout 4B, Elf Tricksters add their luck mod to corruption rolls and to spell checks. Stefan, that's pretty powerful.
They can't spell burn, but yeah, that can sure make up for it.
I mean, if you got a +2 luck mod and a +2 intelligence, you're getting +4 right off the bat.
They use personality, don't they?
Or yeah, personality. Yeah, I feel like the Elven Trickster is going to be very stingy with luck use because of that. But they got to work for that mojo because of it. So that rule right there enhances the momentum that the player is going to want to be tricky, and I love that.
All right, let's dive into the Half-Orc Slayer. Elaine, if you could please bring up question 5 for us. Does the Half-Orc Slayer's robust ability include status effects that might affect their physical stasis? What do you think, Tom?
So I mean, they get it's diseases and poisons, but I think beyond that, I would say no, just as it's written. But robust is pretty broad. I mean, I can be convinced of almost anything. My players know this. They may not always think that I can, but
Stefan, handout 5A says on page 47, Half-Orc Slayers are hardy and tough, right? It says they're hardy and tough. The ability is called Robustness. They make saves against disease and poison effects at +1 die. They heal 2 hit points and 2 physical abilities per night, which increases to 3 per night with a Fool's Day bed rest and Day of Care. So, in your opinion, do you think it might carry over beyond disease and poison?
I mean, the healing of hit points and physical ability points, yes. I mean, why don't you hit me with some examples? Like, right, I know you got them.
I got some examples for this one. Lane, if you could bring up handout 5B, these are creatures from the Xcrawl RPG. Page 331, the Dungeon Wretch causes fatigue, which is kind of, a stamina reducing effect. If you're hit by the Wretch's claws, you have to make a DC 16 fort save or take 1 point of temporary damage from fatigue. If you're hardy and tough, I mean, thinking, that's exactly what that addresses. What do you think for that one, Stefan?
allow it. I mean, because I gotta think, what is it about the, and it depends. I'd have to look a little in depth maybe at the dungeon wretch. You know, what is it about their claws that are causing that fatigue? And I think it would be probably that they're really nasty and just gross. So I'd lean towards yes. But hey, I could be wrong. I need to
Tom,
do my
what
homework.
do you think for the fatigue? It's not necessarily a disease. I mean, I guess it could be, or a poison, but
I'd probably let them use the robust. I mean, we're talking something stamina based. They're already getting bonus HP healing. They're already physical stats is their kind of their big thing. So why not? Like,
I mean,
fatigue seems right in line with disease and poison to me.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you guys more. I don't think it really says what their claws are, why it causes that. It's just a pure expression of hate and bitterness.
Well, with that extra info, I think my answer is changing to a no. I mean, if it's, let me see. I gotta look here. This is
Maybe
creature.
it's more of an emotional attack. My instinct was to go yes. It's fortitude save. It's based on their stamina. That's definitely a physical attribute. If you're hardy and tough, I think you'd be able to fight that off.
Up for debate, kind of based on looking at the stat block a little bit more. I think this is more of a supernatural effect of that hate and bitterness and what else. This is a really folks, go open up your book, go read this, and hit us in the comments.
All right, Tom. Next one is page 336. The Hooga Bungaroo has a paralyzing bite. When you're bitten by it, you have to make a DC 12 fort save or be paralyzed for 1d4 minutes. Does that count as a poison? It's being injected or administered through the bite. It's a paralyzing effect. What do you think?
Well, what do they say? Difference between poisonous and venomous? I would absolutely say that this would count. I know we usually think of poisons as something being applied to a blade, but I'm sure if we dig through old monster manuals, there's references to snakes with a poison bite, and that's just a venom.
Yeah. I mean, you see that in DCC too. I nitpick sometimes whenever sometimes I exchange a little I'll read sure if you want some opinions, and I will tell. I'm like, this is a venom, not a poison, but it's wrong all over the place. Everyone does it.
So on this question, Stefan, what do you think? The Hooga Bungaroo,
it's from Australia. Everyone knows it's poisonous. Yes, yeah, it counts.
All right. The next one, Stefan, we'll hit it back to you. The skeletonizing slime. It secretes an acidic digestive enzyme. It won't dissolve stone, metal, or glass, so it's not that strong, but it will dissolve flesh and wood and bone over time. Touching the slime is 1d6 to expose flesh, and the creature takes an additional d6 each acid damage with each attack. So hardy and tough, I would imagine you got tough skin. Half-orcs have strong, tough skin. Are you given a reduction here? Do they get that hardy bonus with the skeletonizing slime?
No, I mean, one, it specifically says to saving throws. There's no saving throw here. This is just a monster effect. And two, an enzyme interaction is not the same thing. That's like being like, do I get a bonus towards my save against sulfuric acid? Like, no, that's a chemical reaction.
I mean, some people have tougher skin, though. It might take longer to burn through, Tom's skin than it would our skin. He might have.
Well, there's only one way to find out. I'll meet you up after the show.
Sulfuric acid at Dungeon Con. There we go.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you guys.
I'll meet you we'll go to the down into the tunnels beneath the warehouse and get our vials out.
I have context in this situation. So in chemistry class in high school, they used to put sulfuric acid on your skin to turn it yellow. Well, I had a friend named Josh Pye who had named my son after Josh. And I said, let's do it, Pye. When we were in football, tough guys. I said, let's put the sulfuric acid on our skin and see who can do it the longest. And so if you see that scar right here, that's from me winning the sulfuric acid contest and getting a big, huge acid burn on my hand. So it is proven. All right.
All right.
We've got one more. So Tom, this one's a trick one. Lane, if you could bring up handout 5C. What about mummy rot? Not technically in DCC. Mummy rot is a technical form of a curse which cannot be cured, prevented by unless by magical means. It cannot be cured naturally. Creatures invulnerable to disease, such as a monk who have perfected, may still be susceptible to mummy rot. The curse must first be removed by spells such as Remove Curse or Break Enchantment before its effect can be healed. The effect of mummy rot takes place within a minute of infection. The disease causes the victim's body to waste away gradually until it eventually shrivels away into sand and dust. So it calls it a disease and a curse. There's a lot of technicality there and interpretation. What are you thinking on the hardiness for the half-orc to mummy rot, Tom?
I think that I would give it to them. Like I know all of the words said curse, but just the fact that it has disease once in there is enough for me to go, well, it's a disease. The half orc can do this. I also isn't it like I thought there's a DCC adventure with mummies, and I mean, there's a lot probably, but the one I'm thinking of was like a
Tomb
DC.
of the Mummy Bride by
yeah.
There's also there's some mummies in Making of the Ghost Ring.
Okay. And I think in those it's a disease, but I can't find the PDF that I have up at the moment, so I'm guessing in my copies downstairs.
But you would allow the hardy effect.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Stefan, what do you think?
No, I would not allow it. I would not. It is a it's too magical.
It says disease, Stefan.
It says curse. It says all kinds of things. It says
right.
Even a creature immune to disease would still be susceptible. And that's what makes me think it's too magical for this ability.
Fair enough. I think I'm with Tom on this one. I would allow it because it says disease.
If I had a really pushy player, I might be like, I'll give you a +1. I'll allow. We'll compromise. I had a really pushy player.
I'm not saying they're going to beat it absolutely, but I think I'd let it kind of come into play here just because they are that hardier. Sure, they're also not immune to diseases, but maybe they wrap their wounds in mummy wraps. Who knows?
Right. I mean, it's build up a defense immunity to iocane powder. It can happen. Elena, if you bring up question 6, though, let's move on. What are the consequences for a half-orc who isn't a citizen of the NEA? And so half-orcs aren't citizens of the North American Alliance. What are those consequences? What happens because of that?
Go ahead.
Do
they? I didn't see anything about consequences. I know that there are things that they're not allowed to do, but I don't know if I would call those consequences for breaking the things that there's a lot of things about what half orcs can't do, but nothing that says what happens when they do break them. True, and that's what I think of when I think of consequences.
What are your thoughts, Steph?
I mean, if you look at the half-orc class, not the specialist, but the class, there's some more stuff about, they take some, -1D on personality checks with a few exceptions, like grandstanding and stuff, and when they're in Reno. They also get some stuff like being able to bully people. I don't know that they're getting that. It also talks about how they are probably, they're from the legally, the underneath America, the underneath the world, this other realm that has a name that's very difficult for me to pronounce. I need to practice more.
Is it the land
and they're
below
just
the
here
land?
on a visa. Yes, the land below the land. That is what it is. That's what us,
translates to.
Yeah, that's what it translates to. That's what us gringos say.
Let's try what it's called. Zura.
That's probably, yeah. And that's what I would sound like. And then the orc would be like, he should have just said the land below the land. Good try, I guess, bud.
Correction to what I said. North American Empire, not Alliance. Sorry about that.
Yes.
I got my letters mixed up there. But if we do go to the regular half orc class, not the half orc slayer, it does talk about that a little bit. Elena, if you could bring up handout 6A, please. And on page 63, it says, being non-citizens, they're special visitors. There's a whole story about one of the DJs creating a very lovable half-orc NPC and got the Emperor Reagan's kids to love it. And then he was about to ban them from all Xcrawl games, and they came running to him, and they said, no, Emperor, Grandpa, Dad,
No.
let him in.
No, Pappy Ronnie.
Yeah, and he said, all right. So he sent some emissaries out there. So it says they're not allowed to own real estate. They can't possess a driver's license, but they're still expected to pay taxes and follow the laws. Half-orcs who don't live in Reno aren't allowed to leave their homes without an escort. So most live with a teammate or an agent. So how is this going to affect them in the crawl, do you think, Tom?
So I think when they're in the midst of the dungeon, they're working. So I think they're fine. So I think the consequences are all from, the downtime sessions, as it were. Like what's happening between dungeon crawls. Like I'm sure consequences for not being a citizen is it's harder to get sponsors. So they're
You're gonna be pigeonholed with the kind of sponsors you do get as well.
Maybe I don't wish to get sponsored by the 8th whey protein brand this month. But it's basically, I think there's a lot of room for what the judge can say as consequences here for the downtime stuff. I'm mostly curious as to what other judges might do if a say the party comes into possession of owning real estate and suddenly an orc's 1/6 of an owner of a plot of land.
That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's not gonna I will say, judges, be careful with this. Hey, might get a little too real for some folks.
Yeah,
that is true.
So, have a discussion with your group about, where are your lines that you're gonna keep this if this is gonna be a part of your game.
And there is light at the end of the tunnel. At 4th level, they can be considered for citizenship. And so then they can find a sponsor, take citizenship classes. And I assume after that point, maybe be allowed to have a driver's license and own real estate. But they still might face that stigma of being a half-orc.
Yeah, so they'll have their real estate in the nice neighborhood, and everyone will call the police on them, even though they've lived there for 5 years.
Question 7. We gotta start burning through these. We're running out of time already. Having some good conversations. Can half-orc slayers backstab opponents who are aware of the slayer's presence? So normally you got to be hidden, you got to be silent, you got to be sneaking. They have to not know you're there. Tom, what do you think about this one? Can a half-orc slayer backstab somebody who knows they're there?
I know there's a specific condition that they can, but if a half-orc slayer, if the player says, I am going to stomp across and grab him and just punch him right in the kidneys, I'd probably be convinced to let him have a backstab, a little bit of extra damage there. But I know that it's generally when the target is prone, even if they can see them.
Okay. Yeah. Elena, if you could bring up handout 7A, Stefan, are half-orc slayers the best backstabbers out of all the classes? On page 47, they roll on crit table 3. Their base weapon damage is increased by 1 with any melee weapon they're using. And in addition, their luck die increases by 1d on the chain. So other backstabbing abilities that we've talked about in other classes, I think they're getting all of them. Are they the best backstabber in Xcrawl?
I think they might be. And I mean, you just partner up with an athlete and just be like, can you just knock them down constantly? Can you just trip them constantly? And it's going to be easy money.
And so that is, they have to be, I mean, they're starting out with a +3 at backstab. So they got that high bonus. And if you bring up handout 7B, Elena, half-orc slayers can always backstab prone targets, even targets that can see the slayer. is there an argument to be made there, Stefan, that they don't have to be prone, or do they can they only be prone
No,
for that?
I think you're prone, you're looking up, and then the guy comes down on you and gets you in the liver.
Okay, Tom, is there any condition there that might allow you? Like you said, they charge up, they see him coming, terrified look, half orc tusks.
I think I'd probably go with the idea of working with the athlete, someone to set them up, so that to kind of facilitate that. But my players do that anyways. They the first time one of them was like even in DCC they were like, well, hey, can I use my deed to set the thief up for a backstab? I was like, sure, absolutely, and it's just persisted through from there. So they've already kind of got the team building and the combo down. But
I mean, if we got an Elven Trickster who uses cantrip to trip him, make him prone.
Yeah. I also was just thinking, completely forgetting about the +1 die, like just big two-handed weapon, something that does a big old die already. Kind of gross.
It's gonna be nasty. Let's get into the last question for the Half Orc Slayer. Question 8, if you would please, Lena. What is the Half Orc Slayer's individual mojo earning condition? What do you got for us?
Single-handed kills. One arm tied behind the back.
I'm glad you pointed that out.
I think it may mean something different, actually. Good thing of this is these discussions on Raw are what I live for. I think they can just, as long as they do it solo, maybe even with both hands.
Really? All right, Elaine, if you could bring up handout A. We've talked about this before. I've tried to sneak it past Brendan. Page 47, it says Half Orc Slayer gains a mojo point for every creature that they single-handedly kill. I take that to mean they kill them by themselves, right, Stefan? Is that how you take it?
Yeah.
Or do you
They kill them by themselves? Right. I mean, if I had a one-armed Half Orc Slayer, though, I might be convinced.
I would agree with that as well. But let's look at some of the past ones. Page 43, Commandos earn a mojo point for every opponent they put down with a backstab. Now, I think Brendan said that they have to do it by themselves. A Brawler earns a mojo point for every creature with hit dice equal or better than the Brawler's level. They best in only unarmed combat. And I think, again, you guys wouldn't let me use the sneaking, to come in and steal a kill. An Athlete earns a mojo point for any creature they take out with nothing but grapple damage. In those 3 examples, it doesn't say single-handedly. So, Tom, if Stefan has almost got this guy beat, and I come in as an Athlete and get him with a grapple attack and beat him, do I get my mojo point?
I would. I mean, if you took him down, I'm also a big fan of wrestling, so I'm sitting there and I'm gonna watch. You watch the guy come in, do the run out, and he puts the guy into like a sharpshooter and gets him to tap real quick. That's how I think about the Athlete. I think the Slayer is all about doing it yourself. It's it's Hulk Hogan dropping Andre the Giant. Showing the crowd he's the biggest and the strongest.
Put him in the walls of Orcus. Did you watch WrestleMania this past weekend?
I did watch WrestleMania this week.
All right, I saw day
it's not
one.
It's not the best, but it was all right.
Saturday was kind of iffy. I haven't watched Sunday yet, but I heard it was much better. Stefan, what do you think? We've talked about that before. And you and Brendan were kind of adamant that it has to be them defeating him in single combat.
Yeah.
But the Half Orc Slayer says single-handed combat. So now I want to go back and get my extra mojo.
This is not. It doesn't need to be consistent in the wording. This is just Brendan was bored of writing the same sentence 3 times over and thought the reader would be as well.
All right. Well, let's dive into our last specialist class, the Halfling Rogue.
Yes.
What do we got for question 1?
Did I read that right? No luck sharing for the Halfling Rogue? That's it.
Tom, we're used to halflings. We're used to halflings giving out luck. What is going on here?
I think this is a purposeful design choice. I feel like being able to pass out luck as the halfling does that we know from DCC steps on the jammer's toes. I think it's a way to make the jammer class feel special, which I'm fine with.
All right, well, let's take a look at it. Page 47 at handout 9A. Halfling rogues do not develop the skills of their halfling adventure counterparts from Dungeon Crawl Classics. They cannot give luck to other characters, nor have any special abilities when it comes to fighting with both hands. So there's two very distinct things that it references. Now, I'm going to put you guys to the test. Stefan, Elaine, if you could bring up handout 9B, we're going back to the DCC RPG. It does say we don't have those two abilities, but what about the 2-for-1 luck, Stefan? Do I get double my luck bonus?
No, I don't think so.
Tom, what do you think?
I hadn't considered it. I assumed it was all a singular package. You
It doesn't
halflings
say
being
that.
halflings are. I guess I would have to go look at the DCC rulebook and see where is that wording. Is it all under the same lucky ability, or is it broken out?
It's under the same luck ability. Well, it says first they can do this. They can give 2-for-1 luck. Second, a halfling recovers lost luck to a limited extent. The halfling's luck score is restored each night by the number of points of their level. Does my halfling rogue in Xcrawl replenish the luck the same way? It doesn't say.
Yeah, I think like I think the answers to this really is like really brings to like what does like if you're playing a halfling in Xcrawl, it must be because you really love halflings, or the only class that survived, or the only level 0 you had that survived was a halfling. But I think if I'm going to restrict them on passing the luck out, I might toss them the bone on the 2-for-1 luck and the luck recovery. But they get the benefit of that.
Stefan, what do you think about the luck recovery?
Until Brendan tells me otherwise, I'm saying no. There was enough, and hey, if he wants to say no in the second printing, there's about 2 or 3 more lines worth of space on that page under there. He could add it in, but I'm saying no.
All right, but I mean, the halfling rogue looks like such a abysmal class. If we take all that magic away, that makes them
go
magical.
look at all the stinking skills they get. They get a whole lot.
We're gonna get there. Handout 9C, Elena. This means they roll at a -1 die for their first attack, and this is talking about the two-handed weapon, fighting dual-handed. They roll D16s for the first and second, and they crit on 16s. So that effect, notably, isn't part of it. What's question number 2? And let's get into some of them skills.
Yep. So they're disavowed? What is the benefit of being a halfling rogue?
So, Tom, we can't use luck. We can't get 2-for-1. We can't replenish it. We have an increased damage die for our backstabs. That seems, on first read, the only benefit of the halfling rogue. You're an outcast as well. What are the benefits of being a halfling rogue?
I mean, I think the backstab at range on like sling stones, I think that's actually pretty good. I know some of the thieves I've run in games have tried to do that. So I think getting the extra damage on the halfling is pretty nice. I don't know if like it really feels like every class that you guys have talked about on this, even before today, everything feels really special. And the halfling's the first one that I'm just kind of like, I almost would just rather port the adventurer, the halfling adventurer into Xcrawl.
Let me change your mind.
Hit me.
First, let's bring up handout 10A, Elena. Halfling rogues are treated as outcasts in their society in public, but touted as heroes, in private. So they're heroes in their own respect. Now, I found out where the halfling class shines, and it is insane when you think about it. If you could bring up handout 10B on page 51, table 1-16, if you look at their skills, they're getting all the regular thief skills that a normal thief from DCC would get. I believe they're the only class that gets every thief skill. So they have all those abilities. But where they are maximized is, Stefan, sneak silently at +4 for first level and hide in shadows at +5 for first level. That is unheard of.
That's better than anything else. and is better than the DCC halfling.
Usually you have to wait till 3rd level. You have to go through 6 or 7 adventures to get a +5 on something. Is it that much of a game changer to make that halfling super special that he's going to be hiding and sneaking constantly?
I think so, because they're going to be really good at it, and they're pretty good pickpockets too. That you can make some smart usage of that in an Xcrawl adventure.
So Tom, when you put together a +5 for hide and shadows, you put together that now you can backstab, you can get an automatic crit, you can backstab with your sling and get that extra damage. Now you're talking, did they just surpass the Halfling Slayer in backstab ability?
So I think the Half Orc Slayer is still probably better, just because I feel like there's a lot more that you can set up with the Slayer. But I mean, I think the Halfling is better when it comes to being by himself and doing it. He's being able to hide and sneak much better, even like you said, even his DCC counterpart, and then being able to get the bonus damage. I think that is actually. You convinced me. I think they are a little bit better than I saw at first glance.
I mean, if
I'll say
4th level, they're getting a +10,
which is nuts. I love the publicly disavowed. Halfling rogues are treated like outcasts in public. It's kayfabe. Halfling society is like, no, we gotta think that we're telling everyone, all the tall folk, we tell them all that they're terrible. But when they come home, we throw them a big party. But it's a real quiet party, and just the halflings. I love that. There's so much roleplay potential.
I loved that when I was reading it, and yeah, I'm stoked if I can get a halfling rogue into one of my games now. I want to see what they can do with it.
I mean, I'd be hidden the entire time. I wouldn't take a step without being hidden, and I would backstab everything I found with a sling. I mean, it's a rock. You're just hitting it with a rock. You're getting that crit. As soon as you hit, it's a crit. There's a lot of potential there. Stefan, what's our last question for the Halfling Rogue?
Last up, what's their mojo earning condition?
Tom, do you know what the Halfling Rogue mojo condition is?
Backstabs, baby. So I think yeah. At first I was like, it seems kind of difficult. I feel like they'd probably earn it by disarming some traps more often, but with the amount of the amount that they're probably hiding and then backstabbing, I think that's gonna be a really consistent way to generate mojo for the team.
And it's downing an opponent with backstab, so they kill still, steal it.
Yeah, yoink. So this is the class I've been looking for all them steals. Page 47 on handout 11A, Elena. A Halfling Rogue gains a mojo point for downing an opponent with a backstab. They don't have to do it single-handedly. They're waiting for the big bad to be at 1 hit point. Just bink, and give me that mojo. Stefan, do I finally get to steal other people's kill when I play the Halfling Rogue?
When you do this, yes.
All right. Tom, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Did you have a good time?
I had a blast. I've been waiting to, not like, I wonder when they'll ask me, but like I've because I'm not like any. You've had some famous judges on here, but when you sent me and asked if I wanted to join, I was like, yes. Like I'm about to go like run and be late for a Pathfinder game. So that's how much I wanted to be on Raw.
I'm glad you agreed. Xcrawl was more important than Pathfinder.
If you guys are out there, just know that it's coming to you too. Whoops, I'm pasting those links together. But Tom, you've got the House Ducrane out there. You've got the Ashmore Herald. Give us a hint on what's coming next.
So one of my friends who they and I went to Gary Con last year and this year. They're in my father-in-law's 5e game. I've sold them on Xcrawl after I played in one game with Brendan at Con on the Cobb like 2 years ago. And I'm gonna wait until I get back from my vacation, but we're starting to we're gonna start to write an Xcrawl second level adventure that we've unofficially named it the Rob Zombie Memorial Xcrawl Invitational. based entirely around the pun of the main lyrics from the song Dragula, as the like three main encounters one might.
I mean,
I'm eagerly awaiting.
White Zombie. I love White Zombie. Stefan, you said you've got some stuff going on. Anything you want to share?
Oh, boy, big books are harder than small ones. That's
Are
what I'll
they
say.
really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I'll see you at Dungeon Con. And you too,
DungeonCon
viewers. I'll see you
coming up.
after Dungeon Con.
Warehouse shopper badges are still available. We announced there's a 20% discount on almost everything. I mean, practically everything. There might be a couple things that we missed that aren't marked, but 20% off everything at the warehouse shit sale.
20% off the forklift. Okay.
That's probably one of the things. You cannot buy the Wizard Van either. But about a month and a half away, or I mean a week and a half away, Dungeon Con. I've got to make sure I send out an Intradar. I've got all the art back from Nerdronomcon's Andy. Dang, his last name is
Andy Edmonds.
Yeah, thank you. On the spot. So I will be sharing that at the next update, and then we're about ready to go to print on that thing, get it done. So I need to make that July shipping date. But we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks for coming and watching. And Elena, thank you for being on the P's and Q's, as Joey says. It is P's and Q's, right? All right, we'll see y'all later.